Happy Sabbath, boys and girls! And also, I want to greet you a Happy New Year. For this morning, I am going to share a story about being strong and healthy. The title of our story is Healthy Choices. Likewise, our memory verse can be found in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. It says, "So whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." The message of our story is, I serve God when I choose to be healthy. Now, I want you to imagine that you are very hungry and you are invited to a banquet. You sit down at the table and you find wine and unclean foods that you don't know if you should have them and you shouldn't have it. What will you do? Daniel and his 3 friends faced that problem. Let's see what they did. King Nebuchadnezzar's army had invaded and conquered Judah. All the young men from the royal family and other important families had been taken to Babylon. Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael were among the young Hebrews. Nebuchadnezzar's empire was enormous. The king knew that the Hebrew captives had many abilities, and so he decided to train some of them for work in his government. They could help rule some of parts of his vast empire. But first, they had to learn the Babylonian ways. They needed to learn the language. They had to learn the way things were done in Babylon. Daniel and his friends knew that they were going to serve the king, but they decided that God would be first in their lives, that they would serve him no matter what happened. There were so many new and interesting things to see in Babylon. Great temples for worshiping idols were everywhere. The young Hebrews saw parks shaded by strange trees and hanging flowering plants. The cities of Babylon were truly beautiful. After their long journey, everyone looked forward to their first meal in Babylon. They were to eat the best food, and it was the same food served at the king's table. Rich roasted meats and sweet wine were on every table. And the sweetest desserts in the whole land were there for all. All of the Hebrews were delighted with the food. All except Daniel and his 3 friends. They could not eat it. They knew that this food was not good for them. They also knew that some of the foods and wine had been offered to idols. Daniel and his friends determined to serve God no matter what happened. So Daniel asked the officer in charge of all the Hebrews to help. He asked for simple food and water to drink. Although the king's officer respected Daniel, he refused. He was afraid for his life. King Nebuchadnezzar himself had ordered the meal. If Daniel and his friends didn't eat that food, they might not be as strong as the others. And if that happened, the king might have the officer killed. But Daniel did not give up. The officer had appointed Melzar, a steward, to watch over Daniel and his friends. Daniel appealed to Melzar. "Test us," he said. "Let us eat simple food and drink only water for 10 days. If we are not as healthy as the others, do with us as you will." The steward agreed. At the end of the 10 days, the 4 Hebrews were stronger and more alert than the other captives. With God's help, they had passed the test. During all 3 years of their training, they were served with simple food and water. God was pleased with Daniel and his friends. The Bible says that God even helped them with their studies. He gave them wisdom and understanding. And he gave Daniel the ability to understand dreams. Daniel served God first. He obeyed God's rules about eating and drinking. And God rewarded Daniel. Even Daniel's service to Nebuchadnezzar would lead that great ruler to know the true God. So remember, when we put God first, He can use us to show others the other great things that He can